this meeting of this Monday evening planning commission meeting to order at 7 p.m. If we could all stand for the pledge of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I will consider myself present. Mr. Tim Wetzel? You present this evening, Mr. Wetzel? Rafish?
Here.
Aaron Neal?
Here.
Bill Rossetti?
Present.
Mr. Ken Swanson?
Here.
Thank you. I could ask everyone to review the minutes as noted.
I'm a late arriver. I'm here.
Thank you, sir.
Is that Mr. Wetzel, please, for the record?
It is
Yep.
Mr. Wetzel. Thank you, Mark.
Thank
I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes of our previous meeting.
I second that motion.
I would actually like to make a note. Minor change requested on page 4, if I recall. Rafish's last name was misspelled. Missing an S.
No. Second paragraph, one too many S's.
Correct, Larry.
Correct, it did last. Yeah, it wasn't worthy of all that. Thank you, sir.
All right. Well, just for the record, we should go through the entertaining of the motion and seconding again.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes of our previous meeting, February 8th. 2021.
Okay. Second.
Very good. I'll second it if they can't hear. Yeah.
All right. That brings us to new business.
Roll call for the.
Sorry. Roll call vote on the approving of the minutes. Tim Wetzel?
Present.
Approving the minutes. Yea or nay?
Excuse me?
We're voting to approve the minutes. Yea or nay?
Yes, I approve.
Mr. Rossetti?
Rossetti is an aye.
Cancel. Aye. Ready. Motion passed and approved. New order of business. Today's public hearing regarding the petition for establishment of a planned residential development district and for approval of a preliminary LLC community classification. If I could ask everyone to introduce yourself, please. Thank you.
You've been muted. To unmute yourself, press *6.
Filed by Hampshire East LLC, Crown Community Development, for classification of certain property designated in the petition and identified as PIN 0113 200 024 and to be annexed to the village and added to the Oakstead subdivision in the village as part of the planned residential development, together with consideration of a revised preliminary development plan for the Oakstead subdivision filed under 6-18-1 of the village code and covering both the new territory to be annexed as identified herein and also revisions to the previously approved preliminary development plan for the original Oakstead subdivision. Public comment. Is anyone visiting us remotely signed up to speak? If so, could I please have you unmute yourself and present your statements?
Mr. Chairman, Dr. Friday, does that presentation?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm very sorry. Crown Development. I am, if I recall correctly, Mr. Dan Olson would like to speak.
Yes. Hello, commissioners. Can you hear me okay, first of all?
Yes, sir.
All right. I apologize. My video is not working for some reason, but you can't see me, but you can hear me. First off, it's a pleasure to appear before all of you again. My name is Dan Olson. I'm the in charge of engineering and construction for Crown Community Development. With me tonight is Chris Natz. He heads up our sales and marketing department. Rich Olson with Gary Weber and Associates, who is our planner. Dave Gauger with Semcon Limited. He's our engineer. Vince Mosca with Hay and Associates, our environmental consultant. And John Mays and Phil Pykuch with Golden Ratner. They are our attorneys. When we last came before you, we had presented a concept plan for your review and approval. We're here tonight to present the next iteration of that plan, which is a preliminary plat and plan. Before we do that, I thought it'd be good to give a brief history of the project again for those who were not in attendance at the last meeting, and that would be relating to the 2005 entitlement that we received for Oakstead. That entitlement gave us approval for annexation, zoning, preliminary plat, and plan for the site. It included 811 homes on 511 acres. The lot sizes were 8,000 to 15,000 square feet, 65 feet to 100 feet wide. And we had 256 acres of open space, which accounted to about 50% of the total project. Since that time, there's been a few changes. The first being in 2017, we disconnected 10 acres and sold that acreage to the Burnage family at their request. So that property is no longer within the village. In 2018, we purchased 60 acres from the Weisman family up near the intersection of Big Timber Road and Route 20. And then in 2020, last year, we entered into an agreement with the school district to entitle and sell 11 acres to the district for the construction of a new elementary school. That last change is the primary reason we're here today. Our obligation to the school district in our agreement is to get the property entitled and then so that they can open the school in the fall of 22. So they're on a very tight schedule, and that's the impetus for why we started this petition. So what is our petition? So our petition is three things. It's first of all, it's the annexation of the Weisman property, which includes the school site location. It's the rezoning of the Weisman property and rezoning of the rest of the development. And it's the revision of the preliminary plat and plan for both the Weisman property and the rest of the property. With that, that's the history lesson. With that, I'll turn it over to Rich, who will get into the plan and review what the plan is all about. Rich.
Thanks, Dan. Can everybody hear me?
Yes, sir.
Great. So my name is Rich Olson. I'm with Gary R. Weber Associates. We're a landscape architecture land planning firm out of Wheaton, Illinois, and we did prepare the concept plan before your review tonight. I was brought in when the additional property was placed on a contract and was asked to kind of help revision or look at this site as a whole again and give it a fresh look to understand how to bring it up to the standards of a more contemporary plan, and to look at it fresh and bring it be able to bring it to market with all the great things that people want for today's market. So I did that. I took a look at the plan, and I'll kind of walk you through the plan itself and start to give you an idea of the different types of things that we've done. But first, I just want to obviously thank you for this opportunity to come before you and to talk about the plan, and hopefully get some feedback from you as we move through the process. As you know, the site is located generally south of Big Timber Road and east of Route 20. It's a pretty long site from north to south, goes all the way down to Allen Road, and it also even extends a little bit of the site out to Route 47. The site is approximately about 560 acres and is currently being farmed and has a lot of open space components to it as well. The site is, I'm sorry, did somebody say something?
No, sir, go ahead.
Okay. The site does have existing residential to the north, but it is predominantly surrounded by open space and farmland. There's a lot of things that we look at and I'll just give you a little history on the site from existing conditions standpoint. There's a lot of things that we look at. We look at topography, we look at the access points to the site. We also look at the natural features of the site. And this site has real good access off of both Route 20 as well as Big Timber Road. It also has, from a topography standpoint, it's fairly gently rolling, so it has a lot of cornfields or open space farmland to it. So it doesn't have a lot of topography going across it, but it does have some low points and some wetland areas and some floodplain to it. And then we also look at the condition of the open space areas and the components within the site, and I'll go over a little bit of that as I kind of walk through the plan itself. So I just want to, I know you've got this, do you have the site up on the screen there?
Yes, sir.
Great. So just to get a little bit of the details out of the way, we are proposing a mix of residential types, 797 traditional single family, duplex, and townhomes. We're also proposing 216 active adult single family and ranch townhomes. As mentioned, we've got an 11-acre school site on this particular plan, as well as a 6.3 proposed church site on the plan. Just to get you a little bit familiar with the plan itself, our main access starts off of Big Timber Road to the north. And if you look at that particular spot, you've got the proposed school site just to the west of a main entrance, and you've got our Pod A single family entrance to the east. And what's really nice about this plan is we've got a nice spine road that continues from the north end of the site all the way down through the center of the site, all the way down to the exit off of the south. And what that does is that helps us to create these individual pods of different types of land uses all the way through the particular sites. It also serves as a really nice green space corridor to serve as a pedestrian connection to access all of the open space components on the site itself. So just kind of walking down from north to south, I mentioned the school sites, but that just below a Pod A, we've got a large park site feature that has some really nice components to it. It's got an active open space area that can be used for ball fields. If you're familiar with the site at all, just in that park space, there's a cluster of oak trees, and we planned the lots around the oak trees to preserve this particular component. And that's kind of a theme throughout this entire site. We really felt it was important to not only preserve the natural features of the site, but to incorporate them into some of our park spaces. So this particular central park space has both passive and active. It's got some trails through it. It's also the larger stand of trees in there also is predominantly oak trees as well. So we felt that was a really nice space for an active spot of a trail system that would wind through there. So at that intersection there where that road kind of starts to go south, it also goes out to the west. And you've got a small duplex pod there that accesses out to Route 20, which will also be an entrance feature. And it's worth noting that I hope you can see it on the plan, but the spine roads and all the entry features will be well landscaped. We plan on doing entry features to them, so they'll be really nicely landscaped for entrances into the community. The landscaping along the main spine road will help to filter views to the backs of the lots if there are lots that back up to the spine road, and those areas will be well landscaped all throughout the corridor. So kind of as you start to go down south through the site, you'll start to see more of the single family pods, and they all have nice little entry features into them. And then you start to come into a natural feature that serves as kind of a green space break between the sort of the northern pod of homes, and it starts to get into that central space of homes. That will also be sort of a nice landscape feature that people will be able to enjoy as they walk up and down this corridor. One of the things that you'll also see is within each of the pods, we try and create individual open space green parks. So as you can see in that central space, which is pod H, I, and J, you'll see two open space green space parks right off of the entrance features as you come into those entry areas. And we'll be developing those as we progress through the plan. There might be some active components with some play lots, or it might just be open green spaces. But we'll definitely be they will definitely be used as really nice green spaces. So as you continue down through the corridor there, you'll see a large detention area. That's a nice break again, and we will probably have an overlook there where you'll be able to utilize that space for outdoor enjoyment. There's a floodplain right next to it, and that's again part of the open space component that you see throughout this site that really it just really creates these nice breaks between these pods, and then all of the homes, or a lot of the homes, back up to these open space areas. So it's got a lot of an open space plan component built into it. As you get further down sort of mid southern portion of the way, there's a road that eventually goes out to Big Timber. That's an interesting pod of homes up in there. Yeah, if you just go up just a little bit on the screen there, it's pod S and R. So that's an active adult component along with the church site. So the intent there is that you have active adult ranch townhomes as well as the active adult homes themselves. And those will be connected to a larger pathway system that will just be a really nice separate pod. And active adult community, they like to have be separated because that way it feels like it's a more of a gated component to the sites. So as you continue down south again on the spine road, you get into another pod K, and that's just another single family pod that we have. Predominantly, this entire plan is some sort of single family component of different lot sizes. And again, you see another park space there. And then if you keep going south, you run into another one of our breaks in the open space areas that will serve probably as an overlook, but it'll also serve as a nice open space green area. And then you start getting into our southern portion of the plan, where you get into L and M and N. And those areas are adjacent to, in this last revision to the plan, we discovered that in just north of area M, there's a really nice stand of trees. So we were able to adjust the roadway patterns, and we were able to preserve that green space as well. And we also incorporated not only the treat area, but we also created a large open space component that could be again used for, for fields of some sort. There is also in the southern area, to the right, that eventually will go out to Route 47, is the largest open space component of the site. We've incorporated a pathway system in there that will eventually lead you out to Route 47. And I just think this is going to be a really nice space for the residents to eventually be able to go out and just get away from everybody. If I want to go out and take a nice little walk, I will essentially be away from everybody and can concentrate on the outdoor space from that standpoint. So as you continue on down south, there's a pipeline easement south and east. And there again, we've incorporated a mix of single family townhomes and some park and open space. We've utilized that pipeway system for a real creative way to create another open space component with a trail system through it. It's also worth noting from the open space, as Dan talked about before, this is about 50% of this is managed and maintained into an open space component of some sort. And it's a really nice mix. It's not one ginormous spot. It's sort of feathered throughout the site, integrated in, and it goes all the way from the south side of the site to the north side of the site. And we're really excited about this. We think the revised plan, giving several different types of housing units throughout this entire site, as well as the open space components. And we're fortunate enough to work out having the school site, which I think everybody likes to see. And so we're really excited. And if you have any questions, I certainly can answer them for you.
So before we go there, one thing I would like to point out, you heard Rich say a number of times, he mentioned the open space, right? And I think that's the part of this plan that I'm really proud of, and kudos to Rich for his plan. We at 263 acres, this is more open space than the currently entitled plan. But as importantly, this plan actually impacts fewer trees and wetlands than the current plan does. And I think that's a huge plus for the project, and pretty excited about it. So we hope you are as well. So with that, I'd love to answer any questions the committee may have.
So when you say fewer trees, is there what's the estimate of total trees being taken down? So those being saved. I'm just curious about the numbers, the data.
Yeah, there is a lot of tree stands, mature oak tree stands on the site. We did do a tree survey, but we haven't actually done a count. It's just those areas, and in particular, the area up near the school. There is a heavily wooded area there. Originally, we had a whole neighborhood in that area, or in the currently entitled plan as a neighborhood in that area, has a number of roads going through that area and a wetland in it. We're avoiding that entirely. Okay, and then Rich had mentioned the other tree grove, which is actually the original homestead for the farm to the south. As homesteads typically have a number of mature oaks on that site as well. Originally, that was scheduled for, or the current plan shows that as lots, and we made it into a park. So I can get you a count. It might take a little bit to do that count, but we can certainly get you the difference in the current plan to the new plan.
It's just nice to hear that taking trees into consideration upon development is happening. So,
yep. Well, that's something we always value trees, right? We think it adds value to our property, which is the lots. So the more trees we can salvage, the more value we get for the lot. So it's that, plus it's the right thing to do. Sometimes you can't, right? Sometimes you have to run roads through it, and sometimes you just can't salvage them all. And I want to be clear, there are some trees that we will have to remove on this as part of this plan, but fewer trees than what the current plan has.
Yeah, and the other thing to add on to that from what Dan is talking about is if you look at which you in your packet you were you have the actual plat, and the plat has an aerial associated with it that you can look at. Most of the areas, I would say majority of the areas that we're planning lots on, you know, those are farmed areas or areas that have very little trees on them. And we're actually going to be then coming in and planting thousands of trees as part of this development. And certainly would be able to get you, as we start developing the landscape plan further, but it will be thousands of trees. And those trees will be high quality trees. They will be taken care of as part of a larger master association. And then again, can't stress enough, the preservation of the open space areas are definitely something that we paid close attention to here.
Okay. I'd like to actually change up the pad because of a lot of the telepresence we have this evening. If I could ask any online attendees, if you'd like to speak, I will go down the list of the people that we had requesting signups. If you're present, if you'd like to speak, please do so. Otherwise, say no, thank you, and we'll move on down the list.
Well, yes, of course, I would like to speak.
Tim, was that you?
Yes, it was.
We'll get our chance at the end. Dave Gallagher, you.
Dave is our engineer. He's just here to answer any engineering questions that we may have.
Okay.
Unless you want to speak in support of the project, Dave.
Vince Mosca.
He's our environmental engineer consultant.
Andy Householder.
I'm just curious if the church site will have access to big timber, or if it's going to be only accessible from inside the subdivision.
So
yes, there's actually a entrance out to big timber, and it will be also accessible within the spine road, from the spine road as well.
Yeah, I do want to qualify that, Rich. So, you know, the church site is an obligation we made when we first purchased the property 15 years ago to the property owner, and it is a commitment we intend to honor unless they choose not to go forward with that. As to whether or not to have a direct access to Big Timber Road, that's going to be a decision made by Kane County, and I would say there's no reason to pursue that access until we know what their plan is. For sure, there will be access to our access point, and then their proximity between, if they have one on Big Timber and our access point, it might be too close for King County. So that is yet to be determined.
Thank you very much.
Thank you both. Tim Sjogren, am I pronouncing that correctly?
Tim is our transportation engineer, and actually I don't believe he's here, but we signed up because they all may be speaking to answer questions.
No problem. Thank you. I have a B. Kerner. That's all that I have on my list as far as an online sign up.
Yeah, this is Brian Kerner. I'm with Dewberry Architects. I'm the architect for the new elementary school on the site. I have no comments or questions.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you for being here.
And Joe Gemelli. If I am thrashing anyone's names, please let me know. I'll do it for that. Thank you very much, everyone online. In person, Ms. Barbara Burton.
Wes, would you want to go first? I'd switch with you. He's much more important, and I'm a little miffed about the trees right now. So, if you wouldn't mind us switching, if he wants to.
Sure, we can accommodate.
Okay. All right. So.
Good evening. I'm Wes Brazos. I'm an adjacent landowner and I did not receive notice. So I don't know what you guys are doing. But a few things that I didn't hear tonight was the traffic plan. Has that been updated from the Oakstead plan from the early zeros?
It has been, and it's been submitted to the village, and they are currently reviewing it.
Okay. Is it available to us common folk to look at, or we have to FOIA them?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear the question.
Oh, it's to the village. I mean, if you submitted it, how does the common folk access it?
Well, we submitted to the village. That's up to the village how it's provided to common folk.
If you would like to have that information, if you could just send me an email, I appreciate it, village manager, and we can provide that to you.
So we don't necessarily have to FOIA the information.
You can, but you don't have to.
Okay.
May I make a point? 16 years ago, all this information was available at the library.
We just went to the library, yeah.
This is the first of 3 public hearings. So as soon as the engineering company has reviewed those, they will be made available.
At the library?
We can do that if that's.
We'd like to see the preliminary so that we can make changes that affect our properties.
Sure.
Including traffic.
If you just want to keep up to speed with how this is progressing, feel free to send me an email, but we will, as soon as these documents are made available, after the review by engineering, I will be sharing them.
Oh, okay.
Thank you very much. Stormwater management plan, has that been prepared?
It has, and it's been submitted to the village for review and approval.
How about the financial plan?
We have not submitted a financial plan.
So 2005, you did one.
We did.
And you planning on updating it, submitting an update?
We are not.
So how do we know this makes economic sense for the village if you won't submit a financial plan?
The plan, the number of lots has increased, but not substantially enough that we feel it's necessary financial plan. It's a desire of the village. We can certainly consider it.
Well, again, this is a new economic environment. A lot of the assumptions from this 2005 plan no longer hold. So it's in a very constrained environment, correct? So some of the matching funds from federal and state sources that the old plan was based on aren't coming. So how does this make sense financially for the village?
I'm not sure who's that question's directed to.
Well, it's directed to you.
Okay. Well, that's up to the village to decide. That's why we're here.
Okay. It's the village updated its potable water plan. Again, when in the early zeros, when we had all this big development come in, the village didn't have enough water to supply what was already on the books. So where's the water coming from for this additional development? Now, Crown built on the Bloomington Aquifer recharge area, so that's off the books now. So where's all the extra water going to come from?
So part of that 2005 plan, we worked with the village to pass SSA bonds to construct a new water treatment plant and 2 additional wells and a water tower to provide service to both this site and our other properties out there, as well as adjacent properties.
So where's the water getting pumped from?
That's a question for the village engineer. I believe it's the Ironton Galesville Aquifer.
And that's being depleted at a pretty rapid rate. So having not seen anything, that's some of the big picture things I think the village has to concern itself with before moving forward with this. Thank you.
Your answer.
Lane Burnage? My name is Lane Burnage. We are one of the last of the family farms. About 2,000 visitors come to see us, to see chicks, ducks, lambs, goats, pigs, cattle, eggs, vegetables, pumpkins, etc. This is our 181st year here in northern Kent County. We have about a 3,000-foot long property line along the Crown property. Drainage is a major concern. As Wes knows, his parents went to dig a basement and it flooded with water. And that big tile comes right across 20, right into the school site. And then there's a 9 3/4 inch tile coming down into the Pickles property. And of course, there's other tiles that are coming across plus the surface water. We've had quite a row down there because Miss Burton gets most of that water, and I get a lot of that water. And so Huddleston was hired a drainage specialist from DeKalb, and he could only find one 5-inch tile to let the water out. And then as I was looking along the road today, that bridge is 91 years old. And so this bridge, between the two entrances, and then of course the water floods over the top of the road, and there might be 40 school buses going by every day, plus the kids. And so that when it's going over the top of the road, people are getting rear-ended right there. And it's cars have been in your ditch against your fence. I almost got ran over by a pickup truck that was half off the road, and the water was almost in the bed of the truck. It's bad. And then, of course, we have five sump pumps in our basement. And then that water runs down Big Timber Road to the east, across the east entrance to the subdivision. So we need to see the access engineering plans because we have to have drainage. Big Timber Road has been paved every year for the 42 years I've been there, and it's getting taller and taller and taller. So there's been times when I put a canoe in my front yard.
True.
You know, it's pretty bad. So I would think it's 4 or 5 feet deep now in Tuziak's yard. So we'd kind of like to know where those retention ponds are draining to, because if they're going to drain into the Pickles yard or into the Tuziak yard, it's going to go over Big Timber Road again. You know, so we got to have some safety here. You know, we can't just have more and more schools and more people driving down the road. So that's that.
If I may ask, sir,
yes,
thank you very much. Are you off of Big Timber east of the current Lakewood crossing?
I'm on the map.
We are right in the middle of the Crown development on the north side.
Josh, go to the north side and see.
Carol will show you.
We're right next to the church site. Whoop,
Yeah.
up that way.
And the land that's above the high school is about 100 feet higher than ours. So we are forced to take that water in every rain. And if it's a 4-inch rain, it's going to be going across the road. It was across the road right in the middle of the road construction this year, right in the middle of road construction in May. May is usually the wettest month. So that bridge is 91 years old. So we're pretty concerned about that. And then at the Burton and Tuziak in our corner, that is a low spot because the water is coming onto my property in that middle green stretch, which is higher than the center of the road. So when that whole field fills up, then it goes over the road into Miss Burton's. You got it pretty bad.
Yeah.
And the county thought they would help her a little bit. They added a culvert, but that didn't help. And then down by the 91-year-old bridge, before there was houses, the water could get around there and get out some, you know. I've been there since before those houses were there. So sometimes it's 4 inches deep, which is 4 fingers high, and it's 210 feet long, the water that's going over the road. That's a lot of water. You know, that little box culvert is only 3 feet tall and 4 feet wide.
Yeah.
You know, so got it, and the new culvert they put in for you is,
that's ridiculous.
I had it here. I think it's 26 inches wide and 20 inches tall. Yeah. Sometimes it washes out the shoulder of the road a foot deep when that 210 feet long goes across there. Then the county comes by in a couple of days. I don't know if they ever put barricades up. I think
No.
people just force themselves
I
across.
called the county when the
Yeah.
people have gone off the road from the water.
Yeah. Well, that can be fixed. We don't have to suffer with that. And you'd be foolish to allow all these more cars with the parents driving, because there's nobody west of here that comes to these schools. You know, the district ends. The people that are coming past our houses, Carpentersville, all the way in. Even the buses there's lines of buses coming through, you know, and of course, after football games, another major deal. So like I said, we have 5 sump pumps in our house and 1 in the well pit. That's all running back into the front yard, which then runs across the front of the church site, right along Big Timber Road, across that green entrance on Big Timber Road to the right, and then down along that property line. There's a few other things that they've missed on the drawing. There's a fairly new gas main that, according to the drawing, it's right in the back of the people's houses, that goes up to the new high school. And that is a 300-pound pressure line. So when I'm out there to put a fence post in, I'm supposed to call the gas company, and they come out and watch me work with a shovel. Because they think I'm gonna punch a hole in it and blow the hell out of the neighborhood. Well, they come out and watch me. They have people that are the watchers. So that's been interesting. The question on that landscape buffer, it was supposed to go all the way around the whole thing. So I don't know if it is or not. It doesn't look like it behind part of my land there. I'm concerned about the runoff. And you did have a tree replacement plan. So all this property is there with the little aluminum tags, including front of your house, front of my house.
They're still there.
Yeah, they're mostly there, but these trees are a lot bigger. So when you walk down through there, and I walked down to see which culverts didn't wash out, there's a 5.5-foot concrete culvert down straight off Big Timber Road. That has not washed out in 42 years, but others have. You know, so that one's still there. So that's about how big the drainage has got to be. So I think if you'd update the tree survey, you'll find out that the little seedlings are probably 4 inches. Because the pine trees I planted years ago are growing a foot a year. Height ones. So in summary, you gotta handle the road and you gotta handle the drainage. This isn't fair to us. They have already guaranteed they're gonna be discharging more water. So we'd like to see how that's gonna happen. This is the 5-inch tile. That's all it is. And it's supposed to handle the water from behind them Tuesday through our little field underneath Big Timber. That isn't happening, you know, and the 11.5, this is 11.5 across here. That ain't cutting it either, you know, and that one's flowing today. I was down there to check the 11.5. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Mike Pickles?
Yeah, I actually live just up the road. You see where that detention pond is, just by where you see E, tract E. Just to the left of tract E, we're right
here.
there. Detention pond is right behind my property. There's an existing drain tile that runs through my property that actually is plugged on the other side of Big Timber Road, partially plugged, I should say. That at one time, water would spray up about this high out of the ground when it was really bad out, when we had a lot of rain and water coming from wherever it ran all the way across that field there. We spent probably $18,000 with someone trying to repair what was going on, and I ran all new drain tile from the back of my property to the front of my property, trying to run water across into that underground drain. You mentioned that it's the culvert.
Box culvert.
They call it the box culvert. trying to help take care of the water on my property because the drain tile is not taking the water away. We had this discussion at the last meeting that was held for this property. And I asked the question about what's going to happen with this detention pond. Now, I don't know if that's larger than the last time. If that detention pond is larger than the last time, can anybody tell me that?
It's in the drawings.
Well, I see it here, but I don't know what their old ones were.
Ed, do you want to address that on behalf of Crown?
Yeah, well, it was one large detention pond originally. It is larger now, but it is also split into multiple detention ponds versus one large one. And it's larger because we added more property with the Wiesman acquisition.
The one that abuts my property, is that larger than the last time or smaller than the last detention pond that abutted my property?
The single detention pond that's adjacent to your property, I believe, is smaller.
Okay.
But if you add all the other detention that is in the area servicing the same watershed,
Right.
altogether they're larger.
Okay. I asked the question last time, what's going to happen when obviously you've got all that, now you put houses, you put driveways, you put streets, you put everything. Now there's nowhere for the water to go but to the detention ponds. And you come about my property, where does that water go? What happens to that water whenever that, where is the runoff from that detention water? Where does it go?
So it goes the same place it goes right now. The only difference is that we're required by King County ordinance to detain any stormwater coming into our property and then detain it before it leaves our property, and any additional stormwater that we generate on our property. So the flooding, in addition to that, we're required to, any drain tiles that currently exist on our property or come into our property, we're required to tie into our stormwater detention system. So the flooding that all of you are experiencing right now in a pre-development state will actually be helped because we are required to detain the stormwater, and it'll be released at a slower rate. So it won't be a large wash and the big flood that you're experiencing. It'll be detained on our property within these detention ponds.
That's incorrect.
Yeah,
That's
you're
just technically incorrect.
You're detaining it, but in a large volume, right next to my property. So whenever that discharges it.
It's discharged at a lower rate than it's leaving our property right now.
But you're still discharging across your property.
But it's going to go across.
Constant water flow through our property.
Yeah, it'll go across the top of our property though, whereas the intent was always to go through the drain tiles that were put in.
How old are the drain tiles?
Well,
91 years.
Yeah.
The drain tiles are 91
there.
years old.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
sir.
If I may, Mark Schuster, if we could please be careful to identify who's speaking. There were about 3 people there talking all at once. It'd be hard in the future to sort that out. Please state your name so we know who's speaking. Thank you.
Mike Pickles, owner of the property that is adjacent to that detention pond.
Yes, sir. And there, I heard a female voice. Was that Ms. Burton?
It was my wife.
Oh, your wife. Yeah, I can't see you all, so I apologize.
But that's
Thank
okay.
you.
I'll speak with you. So I'll speak so that you'll understand it's me speaking. And I've got the same concern I had last time, and that is, when we get a big rain, the thing now is the water comes at a fairly high rate, but you know what? Within a day, it's gone. Within a day and a half, it's gone because it's moving at a high rate. What's going to happen with your pond? It's just going to discharge it on a steady flow rate across my property. So I've just got a constant wet land now on my property.
Mr. Hedges, is this something EEI would have to?
Yes, this is something EEI will review under the engineering process. So at the next public hearing, we should have some comments for you.
Okay.
And that would be on March 9th.
Okay.
This is Tim Paulson from Engineering Enterprises. We will take a look at that, but that pond and just looking at their their preliminary plan, they're not tying into the existing drain tiles. That's not allowed per the ordinance. So they are providing, they're providing an outfall that's not through the drain tiles. So in the case of if I'm in the right spot, the detention pond on the east end next to where the letter E is or behind there, that will go by storm sewer up to the detention ponds at their entrance at Lakewood, across from the existing Lakewood subdivision, and then discharge into a storm sewer. I believe that was planned through that subdivision.
I don't know if you can see me or not, but are you saying that this detention pond here?
He's pointing to the one in between the A and the E, just west of those two ponds.
The detention pond between A and E.
Right, that is going to discharge up here. I'm sorry. To that detention pond to be discharged across the road and go away to Neverland.
Well, it goes into the system that was planned to take this water when the Lakewood development was built.
Okay.
So this is actually going to tie into an official stormwater abatement system that exits this region.
Yeah, it follows the system that was in Lakewood. There's a floodplain wetland area up in Lakewood that the storm sewer would discharge into, and then it follows down a floodplain area.
Off the top of your head, do you happen to know the diameter of that existing tie-in that's going to be connected to by the Oakstead development?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure what the size is, but I know that. So when they size the basins, they size them, based on the outlet. So then, based on the capacity of the outlet, it impacts how much volume they have to provide in the detention, so that the detention basin will hold the 100-year rainfall event.
And then the remainder, if it gets above, would then discharge up that pipe to the out and out.
Right. The basin will draw down over 3, 4, 5 days. Even if it fills all the way up, it'll draw down through that storm sewer.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Well, that's a good answer. Certainly a different one than we got last time. So it's not a bad answer.
Is there a guarantee?
And the guarantee will be in writing next time. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's the biggest concern is we all have, is getting our water.
And last but not least, technically you were first, Ms. Barbara Burton.
Okay. I'm Barbara Burton. I've owned property, farmed on Big Timber Road close to 40 years now. Well, I'll get to the question about the trees I lived on. But anyway, back 15 years ago, I questioned the village and Crown Development at length with their design and with their environmental concerns. And after all these years, I'm seeing the developers seem to have the same mindset of not being as environmentally sound for the neighborhood, which they're supposed to be, concerned about, and possibly the future of the community. I don't know if you want to answer my questions one by one or I'll just state them. But number one, what are the latest studies that have been done on the water and the aquifer? Have there been any done in the last 15 or 16 years? Anybody?
So there is King County does have an aquifer sensitivity plan. The vast majority, or almost all of the project is not in a highly sensitive aquifer area, with the exception of one small little corner, which is currently scheduled for detention. So, but we'll address the issue with the engineers.
Well, how current is the study?
You'd have to ask King County. I'm not sure when the study was done.
Well, I would hope if you're working with King County, hopefully you'll be a little more aware, of this. Number two, have any studies been done lately on the impact of you leveling the grounds of Oakstead and removing most of the mature and heritage trees? Have you done studies?
I'm not sure what kind of study you're referring to, but we're not going to, if you're talking about when you say leveling the ground, we are not going to come in and tabletop the entire project. In a residential subdivision, you typically follow the contours of the site. There is grading that needs to take place. And as I mentioned earlier, this plan is actually removes fewer of the legacy trees than the currently entitled plan.
Well, I'm kind of begging to differ, and I know behind the Burnage Farm, the property goes up a hill. That's a huge stand of the heritage oaks and whatever. I mean, we went through this with the first hearing. It follows behind almost the whole 3,000 foot maybe of Lane's, the back of Lane's property there. Now, why weren't those trees taken into consideration, and why is that hill being leveled or contoured?
I'm not sure exactly where you're talking about, to be honest.
Well, I'm shorter than the rest of you guys.
And I can't see what's on the wall right there.
This whole area, these are all trees that haven't been,
Or is that
Jay, I believe.
hasn't been grazed or farmed in 40 years.
That is Jay.
The last fence was white oak fencing down there. It is really up a hill. And
they're referring to pod E.
Jay.
Oh, sorry, John A.
Yeah, there are some trees in that area, and we are showing impacts to some of those trees. But what we do in neighborhoods where we do have trees, and this was on the current plan, the currently entitled plan as well, we'll try to remove as few trees as possible in those areas.
But that's solid trees where you have houses designed at this point. There's approximately, I don't know how many 1,000 foot that is, but that's solid trees, mostly oaks. And you have houses built right over the top of them. You have taken them out. Now how trees roots kind of hold water in a way, which might affect our properties. You take all the trees out, the trees aren't holding the water runs more swiftly. Let's just think a little bit more of that environmentally, perhaps. I'm just throwing that at you all. So, okay, that was my tree thing. Don't get me started on the trees. Okay, number 3. When have the latest studies been done on the endangered species of that property? And are there any new endangered species?
We've petitioned and we've received sign off from the IDNR on endangered species. There are no endangered species on this site.
I wonder why. Number 4, is the developer requiring the buyers to pay SSA fees? And if so, will it hurt the buyers when they go to sell their properties?
No.
No what?
No to both questions. There are no SFAs.
Okay. Number 5, will there be a widening of Big Timber, Route 20, and Route 47 to 200 feet?
A widening of 200 feet? No.
So it's 200 foot wide.
No, they will not be widened 200 feet. They will be widened to accommodate access into our subdivision.
Pardon me?
They will be widened to accommodate access into our subdivision at those locations, but it's not 200 feet.
Okay.
What will it be?
Yeah, well.
Dan, you mean to say that the intersections will have some turn lane widening, correct?
Correct.
The question was more, would the entire right-of-way width be expanded to 200 feet wide? Is that right, Ms. Burton?
Yes, that's what I had heard.
All right. So Dan, are there any plans to widen US 20 or Big Timber Road to 200 feet wide?
Not to my knowledge, and not as part of our petition.
Any part of anybody else's petition?
I would say that the county required us not to build within 50 feet of the new widening of the right of way of Big Timber Road. There is county plans on it and you guys have signed off on it a long time ago. So speak up, please.
That's not part of our petition.
And we don't really sign off on what King County can do with its own roads. My understanding is that Route 20 has already been widened in preparation for this development. The ingress left turn for the Oakstead has already been in place. It is directly adjacent to the Lakewood Crossings entrance.
That is there.
That is there.
So yeah, as far as US 20 and state routes, we have to follow with what King County addresses on their own roads or the US route.
So at this point, the county has not stated or gotten in effect any widening of the entire part of Big Timber Road, just at your access points.
Nothing that I'm currently aware of. I do know that King County has its 2040 and 2050 plans already available online. I can look into that if you'd like to see if when their timeline might be on the widening of any possible.
Can that be included, please? Because you signed off on where these entrances were going to be 16 years ago on Big Timber. You signed off with King County. One was in her front yard.
I assume it still is in my front yard.
No, we own the land now across the road from you.
Yeah, but I could still have the entrance. I'm possible.
Oh, yeah, I think you could.
Yeah.
If you want. Yeah.
You want to know where I am now?
Which entrance? Because the entrance is already there and paved and prepared for the primary entrance for the Oakstead community.
That's the one down at the end by us across from Lakewood. He's down further from where we are.
Have them lower their map a little, other direction.
There you go.
Down, okay.
There was a proposed access right here, right across here.
Okay, which is no longer there.
Correct, but it's in the county
It's
record
there.
because you signed off for it.
Yes,
And she says it's there. She
Yes.
lives on that side of the road.
because I've kept it potential commercial, multifamily and whatever. And now that he doesn't need it, it's not saying that if someone buys mine commercially, because the county signed off on it, I think it was every, quarter or half mile, there was supposed to be a stoplight.
And the town told them where it was, the speculators told them where it was gonna be.
Right,
Yeah.
right. See, some of you guys probably weren't even born yet. We've gone through this. We've been through this, so. Okay, now another question on that. If the places or when they are widened, is eminent domain going to be used? And will there be condemnation for the public good? Which means we don't get paid.
That, again, I really couldn't speak to. Route 20 is not village maintained, managed, owned.
But Big Timber Road would be.
That's entirely county.
Even when you get your subdivisions in, it's not gonna be part of the town.
That's correct.
Okay. Have you addressed, or through the years, were the failing wells addressed from the village? And has there been any studies in the recent times on the wells and if there's still problems? I mean, is well number 9 still pumping sand?
I'm not sure which wells you're specifically speaking of, but we're part of the water that's provided out here will be the Village of Hampshire water from their deep wells. I'm not aware of any failing wells, but we won't impact them because we're not drawing from shallow wells.
Tim, can you speak to well 9, please?
Maybe Mr. Brazes would know more.
No, I've been following it lately.
Oh, you haven't been following the wells either lately.
Tim Clausen, Tim, can you speak to that?
I can look into it and get back to you. I'm not familiar with well 9 as we speak right now. It's not something I've looked at. So
Speaking, Mark, I can tell you that well 9 is operating just fine. It's not pumping sand. And our water system and water and sewer system are operating very well right now. So that does not concern.
So there, at this point, the village has enough available.
Yes, more than enough for this particular development. I'd be happy to share that with you first privately.
I know, yeah. Okay, number 7. We're getting the end, people. Has a problem of water, and which she's brought up too, east of Lakewood on Big Timber. Has it been addressed when it comes to the accidents on there? Has there's been a study? I mean, I've had enough, these kids coming out of the high school do not know how to drive on a bad road, and they go tooling down through that water coming over the road. And they're generally sliding off in my ditch. Luckily, I have not hit a fence, and I don't think there's been serious injuries, but has anybody done a study on the accidents from the water coming over the road?
If you're asking Crown, we provided a stormwater management report that's being reviewed by the village. But we have not provided any study of accidents on Big Timber Road. I would assume that would be King County's purview.
Okay. Well, at this point, I really would appreciate you fellows on the board and ladies, to consider the possible water problems that Oakstead could create for us in the neighborhood, plus the effect of if they are grading or leveling or whatever the property, how it's going and removing the trees, how that's going to affect either the water beneath the ground or above the ground, how it's going to be traveling. And I guess another question, here we go, the trees again. The trees you're planting, what kind of circumference do they have? Are these little sapling trees that's going to take 20 or 30 years to become a tree?
That hasn't been determined yet, but we typically do 2.5 inches.
Right.
Okay, little tree, yeah. Well, I guess till you get, I'm hoping the village will ask somebody for some type of tree survey, and why there's really no count on record of how many there actually are, how many are going to be taken out, and how that will affect the water flow. As you can see, the 4 people or whatever that spoke tonight are extremely concerned about the water across their property. And especially across my property, I have expensive horses. Water coming across turns my grass sometimes a strange color. What is in that water, when the people in the subdivision start using Roundup and things like that, what's going to happen when it starts coming across my property? And I'd like to say that the Namtusiacs have a lovely pond back there, but when this water comes across, the fish out of their pond come right across with it. So if you want to come fishing, you just bring a bucket, you put it down there, the fish swim in. Not much to catch them.
Mrs. Burton, if I could just say one thing to all of you. This is Jay Hedges, village manager. The village is very concerned about stormwater management. Tim Paulson, our engineer, is an expert in stormwater management. And we will be reviewing this stormwater management plan with EEI in the next 2 weeks. And at the next public hearing or prior to the next public hearing, we will make those studies available to all of you.
Now, the next public hearing is a zoning public hearing?
Yes, which is on March 9th.
And we can still bring up the issues there of the water.
You can have the same comments you have then, and I believe by then we'll have some better answers for you.
Okay.
And you all have my business cards. So I would like you to all give me a phone number, please, with your names here on the sheet. If you just pass it around so I can get in touch with you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr.
Yes, thanks.
All right.
Pass that around, thanks.
Any further question or comment from the planning commission? Yes, sir.
This is a question for our engineering firm or if it's for Crown, but I understand our purpose here isn't necessarily to give a yay or nay on this project. They have a yay for the project. Our purpose here is to review some of the changes and alterations and the current access or the current road entrances. Those, if we approve or submit, we don't approve, if we submit our recommendation to the village board, who have the elected officials have the ultimate say, of course, those are not open for change or addition, correct? Are those, as they're current, I believe we got what, 2, possibly 3, as they're currently planned, those are not up for change or increase later on, is that correct? This is Larry Rappich, by the way.
Yeah, so we have done the traffic study. We think they're located at the proper locations as far as sightlines go and whatnot. But it ultimately will be the decision of both the village, but also the jurisdiction, the agency that has jurisdiction over the road. So that would be Kane County, obviously, for Big Timber Road access points, and then IDOT for the Route 20 access points. So they'll have the ultimate say.
If I can maybe put a finer point on it, if we need another access, you need another access road or entrance or curb cut, does that then come before us again as a new proposal or as a new amendment?
Well, I guess it would, we have to come back anyway. This is a preliminary approval that we're requesting. So we'll have to come back with final approval, which at that point, we would know whether or not the agencies would require us to relocate those. And then we'd have to get approval from the village for that.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, comments from the planning commission? Mr. Rossetti, Mr. Wetzel?
This is Bill Rossetti. I'm good, Brian.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, I'm fine too, Brian. I don't have any questions.
I have a question for Crown just as it relates to stormwater runoff that is currently on the site. Once developed, all of the stormwater that is currently overland or within the drain tile system will be managed by a public stormwater infrastructure, correct?
Yeah, and Tim knows King County ordinance better than I do, but we are required by ordinance to any field tile that we encounter, we have to tie it into our system, which then takes it into the detention ponds.
All right. So to Mr. Pickle's point, with the detention pond that is behind your property, it will be managed through an independent, publicly maintained stormwater system, which should. And if indeed it is going to drain to the north and then across the street into Lakewood, it should actually relieve some of the overall concerns that you folks have been facing currently. That's what it sounds like. That's what it sounds like.
Can I say something? It shows this is a floodplain.
Sir, will you identify yourself?
My name is Lane Burnage. This is my 43rd year in Rutland Township. So this water that's flowing over here is going right through here. It's crossing their land, flooding all this, going right over to Miss Burton. I don't see them collecting all the storm water off the Christensen's 40 acres or anything coming from Ketchum Road, Route 20. The high school's up here, all that water's coming through. And if I may have one other point, this part of the development is all outside the Hampshire Fire District. So I would think it's more than 6 miles from here to Pingree and countryside. So perhaps another fire department site would be needed here.
There have been some discussions with an additional fire participation of actually in that area. The latest developments on which I can't speak to at the moment, I don't recall. But it was discussed at the corner of Ketchum and I think it was Big Timber there.
And Ketchum and Big Timber is Hampshire Township.
He's speaking to the Pingree.
This is Rutland Township. This is Pingree Grove. The Pickles is in Pingree Grove and Fireside, as am I, as Ms. Burton.
And Mr. Brazier.
As is half of these houses. Because north of here in Lakewood, they had to build a new fire station to come over the tollway to take care of that. And that was because of this town.
Excuse me, Barbara Burton here. On your question, if I'm old, I might not hear well, that's why I talk as loud as I do. He was saying that when they put the drainage tiles in, the way it sounded like to me, they then would tie in the old tiles. Now, those are the old tiles that are 91 years old. And he specifically said, no, they aren't using the old tiles. But did you not hear what I heard?
So the existing tiles that are in the field, can we speak to that? That's on the property crown that you guys currently own. Can we talk about what is going to happen to those existing tiles as it relates to the new public infrastructure and the stormwater management? Can we retouch on that topic, please?
So if the tiles are deep enough and we encounter them with our storm sewer or sanitary water system, we will connect those into our storm sewer system. If there's a tile coming onto our, if they're shallow in an area where we're cutting grade, it will be removed. If there is tiles coming onto our property, we will tie from upstream. We will tie those tiles into our stormwater detention system.
But they're saying they're going to tie in at some point into tiles that are already 91 years old. Are these tiles miracle tiles that are made to last 200 years?
So if I could step in for a minute, Tim Paulson with Engineering Enterprises. So when he talks about tying in tiles, that's on the upstream end. So if a tile is entering their property at the property line, they would, connect to it to provide a structure so that any water coming from an upstream property in the drain tile would tie into their system, go through their detention basins. They're not allowed to tie in at the downstream end. So when a drain tile is leaving the property, they have to, they'll put an inspection manhole, clean out structure, and no further water from their property will go into that tile. The downstream tile will be left alone. So when we're tying in upstream tiles. We're not tying in any tiles that are leaving the property. No water from the subdivision will tie into any tiles that are leaving the property.
But the water that comes eventually through my property before it hits the drainage ditch and runs north to the toll road, that starts out by Ketchum and Route 20. It winds its way behind all of their properties. It goes through Crown. There's many natural springs on Crown's property there where the trees are. And it eventually travels through my property. Now, I mean, you've got to be going through some of the old tiles, I would think, and all that distance.
So,
all those
right.
If I may ask, are you asking for them to replace drain tiles outside?
No, I'm just, in my old feeble mind, I'm just wondering if at any point they tie into one of those 91-year-old tiles. How long are those 91-year-old tiles going to last where, are they going to break with the pressure of the new water going through? Are they the same size? I mean.
Tim, if we're tying in on the upstream side, that means anything that's within the property, if those drain tiles are damaged, the 91-year-old drain tiles that are within the Crown property, that would then produce overland flooding on the Crown property, which would then re-enter through the surface, the public infrastructure through catch basins and manholes, correct? It wouldn't impact the downstream. I think the concern, Ms. Burton, correct me if I'm wrong, is there are 91-year-old tiles on this property.
Oh, sure.
Crown is going to identify and catch them at the upstream side on the Route 20 side of the property. So once they catch them there, and even if it winds from up north, once they catch them on their property, then there's the public system. So anything else that's remaining between Big Timber and 20, I believe it's already going to be caught on the upstream side, which means it's already going to be in the public system, which means those 91-year-old tiles that are on the property may be null and void. They may no longer be warranted.
This is Jean.
Right.
And I just have a question with what you're saying, just to understand.
I'm sorry, a little louder, your name, please.
Jean Pickles.
Thank you.
So my question is, what you're saying and understanding the upstream drainage or whatever, what we're all saying is all the water comes from Route 20 through the fields, through all of our properties.
Correct.
That's how it works.
Which now will be driveways.
So, right. So what you're saying is with what they're doing, they're saying they're gonna catch that water up there before it even gets through all the fields to our houses.
All of
They're
the,
gonna
all of
redirect.
those streets are gonna have sewers, stormwater retention.
At
drains.
Route 20.
That is my understanding.
Okay.
That is
I
my-
just, that's all I wanted.
So the impact, this should ultimately, Crown coming in, it should, 43 years, Mr.
Burnage.
Mr. Burnage, I'm sorry. This should, and I understand your life experience out there, you probably know better than all of us where this water is and where these tiles are, but I
Yes, he
believe,
does.
I know he does, I can tell. But I believe as the water runs through the property and through the Kane County stormwater regulations and the regulations that we have to follow, anything that comes onto this property, Crown now has to manage that water. They have to manage that water.
Let's ask them then. Okay, let's ask them. So.
Tim, am I speaking out of pocket at all here, or am I
No.
close?
You're correct, and they either bring it into their system or they provide a route for the water. So, I mean, there are drain tiles that are coming into the areas they're going to develop that they will remove through their property, as we've been talking about. But there is a floodplain area that runs through the middle of their property, as you can see. Can't see the neighborhood numbers, but like between E and F and J and H. So water that's some of the upstream water that does not enter their neighborhoods, they are preserving that floodplain and wetland area, and the upstream water will continue to go into that floodplain area and go through their property and then on downstream through the floodplain.
So we are going to address the drain tiles, but the natural overland floodplain that runs through the property, which is currently causing some angst, that is going to remain, but we are not going to, the goal is to not impact that any further. Correct?
Correct. Yeah, that's correct. And some of the water that goes there now, that's in the part they're developing, will go first through, their detention basins. So it will have a positive impact on the floodplain, on the way the water gets to the floodplain for the downstream areas.
I'd like to ask you one more question on that. Now, at the back where hopefully I'm saying this right, Lane, where that floodplain is, there's a lot of natural springs back there, isn't there?
It's, the creek has become almost 10 months now. 40 years ago, it was only about 2 months a year. Now it's 10 months a year. And that's what in Tuesday had the water right across from your house.
Yes.
Almost the whole year.
But at the back of the property there where it abuts Crown, there used to be a lot of natural springs back there where the water was coming up out of the ground. Is there no longer?
Not really. No.
Oh, okay.
There really never was a lot of spraying.
Okay.
But
My understanding is there's generally going to be a net decrease in the amount of water that needs to exit this property.
30 inches of rain is 30 inches of rain. It's not going to rain less.
With all of this development, all of these roads, the spine roads, they're putting in sewer infrastructure that will be exiting through Lakewood, through ordinance required stormwater management system. So as far as the overall amount of water that actually falls on the property, that's not going to change. What is changing here in this proposal is there's going to be an increase in streets and stormwater sewers. So aside from that natural flood flow across 20, which currently exists, anything outside of those, there's actually going to be a net decrease because it actually is going to exit. There's being provided an exit for a lot of the water that currently has nowhere to go. So anything that falls on anything that's paved in these properties, it should go into the stormwater sewer system, which then is being forced to exit this currently unmanaged property. So that's my understanding, is that there's a net decrease in amount of standing water.
I suppose there's no guarantees.
There shouldn't be any increase. I mean,
There shouldn't be.
It's not like the storms are gonna drop more water on this property just because there's houses on it, but the presence of these houses and the pavement, the parking and the streets means that there's gonna be sewers. We're waiting for that water.
Tim, part of the design and as EEI goes through these projects and reviews the plans, is it not taking into consideration the impervious, the level of impervious structures that are gonna be on the site, whether it's rooftops, driveways, streets, and then that is calculated into the stormwater management plan as far as, pipe size and stormwater drainage and detention ponds. Is that not taken into consideration?
Yes, that's taken into consideration. That's what the detention ponds are for. That's creating volume that will hold back the additional runoff that is coming off of impervious areas goes to the detention basins and is held there and released at a restricted rate, over time so that it doesn't increase flows going off site. But yeah, that is the purpose of the detention basins, is to offset increased runoff from the new impervious areas.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
I have a quick question on that. How deep are these basins? Because if you remember at Lakewood Home, how many times did that detention pond in the front have to be made bigger and deeper before the problems kind of stopped there? So how deep are these basins?
I'd have to look at the plans, but we've reviewed preliminary calculations for volume. So when they do the final, they'll be sized to have the volume. The depth and the area will determine how much volume there is, and they'll be sized to provide the volume that is necessary to meet the ordinance requirements.
Tim, this is Jay Hedges. Have the stormwater detention requirements changed since this original plan in 2005?
I think it was, a year and a half ago, King County did implement a new stormwater ordinance. So some of the requirements have changed. They're using a new updated rainfall that the state of Illinois developed and went into effect just over a year ago. So that increased rainfall is used in their calculations, which means their detention requirements are a little bit larger than they were with the original plan.
Thank you. I just have one further question. Commissioner Neal, would you mind sharing with our audience what you do when you're not a commissioner here?
Oh, I'm sorry. I am the operations superintendent for the City of Elgin's Public Works Department.
Knows a little bit about this.
Yeah, so we are City of Elgin.
So no wonder you're asking very good questions.
Well, I'm just trying to, not only am I asking the good questions, but I'm trying to take with the knowledge that the community have, that these stakeholders in the room have, as well as take with what Tim from EEI and what Crown Development is trying to bring, as well as a community member here in Hampshire, to try to make sure that, we talk about all of these things and we bring solutions that best suit the community, best suit the stakeholders that are in the area and try to improve the area. So, yes, sir.
Now, I have a question. Now, what we spoke about this evening, this is all on record, right?
Yes, sir.
When we talked about how water is going to go into that detention pond behind my property, it's going to leave and go away from my property through some other system to another detention to be pumped to another. Okay. I just want to make sure. Based on my last experience, go around with the development, things weren't as,
Not as much on record.
yeah,
Mr. Schuster?
on record as a whole, I guess.
Mr. Schuster?
I'm here.
So just in order, so that everyone in the room, I guess maybe including the commissioners as well, can you please give us the layman's definition of what we are voting on tonight? I don't want anyone to leave the room thinking that when we vote yes, we're voting to build this. You know, if you could give us the layman's version of the paragraph long item that we are talking about and going to vote on today, just so everyone is on the same page as we move towards a vote this evening.
I can do that. At the close of the public hearing, whenever the chairman determines that everyone's had a chance to speak, there will be two motions that the commission should make and consider. One is to zone the what Mr. Olson has referred to as the Wiesman Farm. That's the new property that Crown acquired and wants to add into the Oakstead development. That property, because it's going to be newly annexed, has to be also classified in a zoning category. So the motion would be to classify that property in a planned residential development district, the same as the rest of Oakstead. After that, the second thing before you tonight is an application to recommend approval of the revised preliminary development plan for the entire Oakstead property, which is now a little larger because they're adding the Wiesman Farm. And they've changed some of the features of the original plan as well. So you're going to zone the new property, and then you're going to, you're going to recommend all the plan commission does is recommend. You'll recommend that to the Board of Trustees for approval, and then you'll recommend approval of the revised preliminary development plan. Those are the two questions before you this evening.
And all of that can be done through a singular motion, correct? That's in front of us? Well, it could be, I mean, as read in the, that's the plan motion.
This one actually doesn't reference the zone.
So I guess the first question is, has everyone had an opportunity to speak or ask questions who desires to at this public hearing?
Everybody has acknowledged yes, Mark.
Okay. All right. Well, then, Mr. Chairman, you could close the public hearing and then take up a discussion with the commission.
Will do. I will entertain a motion to close the public comment portion of this evening's meeting.
I'll make that motion to close the public hearing.
Seconded, this is Larry.
Roll call, please. Tim Wetzel.
Aye.
Mr. Rossetti.
Aye.
Mr. Swanson.
Aye.
Motion passed. I'm sorry,
It's one more.
Larry Rapids.
Aye.
Mr. Aaron Neal.
Thank you, sir. Yes, I.
I do apologize. Forget that in addition to the motion in the second, we'll also make the vote.
5-0.
Yes, sir. Okay.
Just for clarification, this is Larry Rapids. The Wiesman Farm, is that where the school is? Okay, thank you. No? But the plot they want to add is basically the school portion, and they diverted the entrance to accommodate for that, if I remember from the last meeting, according to the new plan. Folks at Crown, this portion that we want to annex and add and approve is at the entrance by Ridgecrest and Big Timber, yeah?
Yes, I'm sorry, I didn't realize the question was directed to me.
I think it's, Josh is trying to show you, see the red dotted line?
Yeah.
I see it.
On the entrance, that's the portion that's being annexed to the village, and that
Understood.
includes the Wiesman Farm.
Okay, Thank you.
I apologize. To clarify, the entirety of the school site is within the Weisman annexation parcel. The entrance to the school site is on the original Oakstead parcel.
Right, and if I remember correctly, it was gonna go due south. The spine road would head due south to stay on the right-hand side of that dotted line where it currently sits. Where now we're able to, a little bit more serpentine, preserve those park areas, adjust the detention ponds, if I'm remembering from our previous meeting, yeah?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. And I will just make a comment, and this is to the board and whoever wants to listen. I live just north of here. You can almost see my house on the edge of the screen. So speaking for myself, we are not here to leave long-term residents to the tender mercies of some robber baron company. That we have, we live in the community and that we want to do what's in keeping with the plan, which has been, 20 years? We had a long-term plan set forth before I got here, and that, we're being mindful of the impact that everyone brought, and I do appreciate everyone's comments. I have a question, forgive me, and this is back for Crown, it just popped into my head, forgive me for meandering a bit. Are the sump pumps, I assume these places are mostly gonna have basements, are the sump pumps going to eject into the yard, or will they inject into a pipe, some PVC or what have you, that leads into the storm sewer system?
I believe village ordinance requires us to eject the sump pumps to eject into the storm sewer system.
Okay.
Usually that is directly into the storm piping, or the manholes, I should say. In some cases where it's backing up to a detention pond, it may daylight into detention.
Excellent, thank you. Yeah, I'll be closer to the pond than you are, so I got a dog in this fight.
There at the pond.
Our whole back of our property.
I live in Tuscany Woods neighborhood, and our sump pump does discharge from the basement into a pipe, 2-inch PVC directly into the storm system, which then prevents overland water. It's contained. Right. That would be something as public hearing one that you guys recommend.
That was a very good question.
But I also would like to share, I've shared this with Crown once before, and thank you, Jay, for giving me the opportunity to speak. But in my professional life at the city of Elgin, Crown Development has overseen a large development in Elgin, which is the Highland Woods subdivision right off of Route 20. They have been a community partner for the city of Elgin for over 20 years since they've been there. They went through the recession where everything stalled out and they stopped building. And they came back after the recession and they're still there. What Crown does, they don't build homes. They manage the entire site from start to finish. And they bring in developers to build a specific type of home. But Crown is not in their business model, at least through my professional experience, isn't to come in and leave. They're here until the last house is built and until that master association is completed. And they've been a partner of the city of Elgin. I deal with them twice a month in the city of Elgin for things that they're doing. And they're here for the long haul. This isn't not to speak ill of anyone, but some develop, Pulte will come in, Pulte will build houses and they leave. Crown doesn't do that. They have a master plan and they actually bring these developers in. This is a solid company. And that's why I bring my support to this planning commission, to this community, to bring them in, especially for a site like this. That's going to contain a school, that's going to have active adult, I believe this is going to be a great development. It just needs to meet all of the expectations of everyone involved, which includes you folks. More so than anyone, folks who have been here for 43 years.
Wow. I can speak that the last time we went through this whole process, I stood up and I said the same concerns I had about the detention pond. And I believe it was the president of Crown that had some guy with him that did these studies. And at that time, water was being dumped out of the detention onto my property. And I was opposed to that and I didn't like that idea. And he pretty much really didn't care what I liked because he was building a development and in my opinion, his concern for the surrounding
There's nothing.
people meant nothing. So that's why we're all here again tonight.
Well, that's why we're here. That's why the manager is here. That's why we have trustee Klein here tonight.
I'm glad that they've,
they've taken a perhaps new approach to things and it makes for a much better feeling.
With that, I would like to make a motion, Mr. Chair, to recommend annexation of the Weissman property, which is approximately 11 acres at the north end of the current Oakstead development into village limits.
Mr. Chairman, the question before you really isn't the annexation, it's the zoning of that same property, please.
Yeah, bear with me for just a moment. I apologize. We're changing from PRD to E3. Is that correct, Mr. Schuster?
By default, land comes into the village at E3, so it's changed. The petition is to change it from E3 to planned residential development, which we all call PRD zone.
I had it backwards. I apologize. Entertain a motion to. Zoning. Right. Well, it's not just that 11 acre lot. It's actually the rezoning of the entire thing and then approving or denying the recommendation with the changes from the original. Okay, so we're. I would actually approval of the zoning. I would actually be looking for a motion to rezone the entire development. Correct, Mr. Schuster?
No, that's not correct. The motion should be to classify the new property, what we're all calling the Weissman Farm, in the PRD zoning district in the village. All the rest of the property is already in the PRD zone, and it's fine that way. So
okay.
It's just to zone the new 11 acre piece, the Weissman Farm, that's being added in.
Again, I'll make a motion, Mr. Chair. I would recommend to classify the new section of this development.
I'll second the motion.
Jim?
Mr. Wetzel?
Yes, it was.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks. Roll call, Mr. Neal,
Yes.
Mr. Wetzel,
Yes.
Mr. Rosetti,
Aye.
Mr. Swanson.
Aye.
Mr. Schuster, it's John Mays. Could I ask for,
And Mr.
Just a
Rapic.
moment, John, if you could hold a second. I don't believe Mr. Rapich was called on to vote.
No, Mr. Rapic.
Aye.
Okay, Mr. Mays.
yes, I just want clarification. It's not 11 acres. It's 59 plus or minus acres, I believe.
Oh, all right.
Track.
That's
So
correct.
I misstated that. I think I had heard it wrong earlier this evening. The Weissman addition is about 59 acres. Is that right?
That's
And
correct.
it's a school site that then's about 11.
The school site is 11 acres. The entire Weissman property is around 59 acres.
All right, thank you.
We'll correct that in a minute.
You want to? Sign.
Yeah, I don't think we need the acres in here.
Okay, as long as that's an adjacent property.
And now, our second motion should be everything else, whether or not to accept the proposal with the changes from the original entitlement. Correct, Mr. Schuster? That's what we're looking for now is the approval declined.
You'll be voting to approve the revised preliminary development plan for the entire Oakstead development, including the land to be added to 59 acres.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we present our recommendations to the board to accept the new revised plat and plan and including the addition aforementioned and the changes since the previous plan.
Any seconds?
I'll second it, Aaron Neal.
Larry motion.
You know, I want to know one thing. I'd like to know who's responsible for building the school in the proposed subdivision.
I believe, do we have the architect still on the line?
Yes, we do. The school will be built by the school district. That's Community Unit District 300.
And to be clear, you submitted plans. There's some plans for that site and that building that are under review with the village already, correct?
That is correct, and they've also been reviewed by the Hampshire Fire Department.
Okay, thank you. Does that answer your question, Mr. Wetzel?
Yeah, it's sufficively, I guess. I'm just, as long as I know who is responsible for building that school, I don't think that's been answered. Who is responsible for building that school?
The school district. They take charge of that. They let contracts for that in their own processes for bids and so on. I don't know if they've named a builder yet.
I'm sorry, this is Brian Kerner with DeBury Architects again. The construction manager hired by the school district is Lamp Incorporated out of Elgin.
Okay.
Does that answer your question, sir?
It does. It does, actually.
Thank you, Mr. Kerwin.
Yeah, thank you. All right. I'm satisfied, Mr. Schuster.
All right, under a motion by Larry Rapish with a second by Mr. Aaron Neal. Roll call, please. Aaron Neal?
Yes.
Tim Wetzel?
Aye.
Bill Rossetti?
Aye.
Ken Swanson?
Aye.
And Larry Rapish?
Aye.
Thank you very much all. We have no old business this evening. We'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Chairman, before you do that, we typically then poll the board, make sure that you are authorized to make a report to the Board of Trustees of the recommendation and results of this meeting.
Okay.
Is that acceptable to the commission? If so, someone could make a motion. Second, we'll vote just to authorize the chair to report.
Ken Swanson has motioned.
I'll second it.
All right, roll call, please. Mr. Aaron Neal? Tim Wetzel?
Aye.
Bill Rossetti?
Aye.
Ken Swanson? Larry Rapish? Motion passed 5-0.
One last thing, Mr. Chairman. Some of you will have seen a public notice, in fact, the public notice of this meeting, which was in the newspaper and for which a certificate of publication is on file with the village clerk. Also announced a meeting of the Zoning Board of Appeals for tomorrow night. That meeting has been postponed, and you may have seen a second publication announcing that the zoning board will meet on Tuesday, March 9, 2021, here again at Village Hall. All of you are free to participate. You now know how to do it, either in person or online. That will be, the zoning board will take up the same two questions for discussion and recommendation by it on that night. And then secondly, as part of this 2005 process, there was an annexation agreement for this property. I'm sorry, for the original Oakstead property. There is now a document, or will be a document, it's under review at the present time, for annexation of the Wiesman Farm property, and then enveloping the entire property as to any changes in this plan and any changes in the terms and provisions of that original annexation agreement. There will be a public hearing to consider that document held at the Board of Trustees meeting on March 18. So that there's been talk tonight that there'll be 2 additional public hearings. Those are they, March 9, March 18. All of you are free to participate in those public hearings. Repeat your comments or make new comments as you choose. The Plan Commission, Mr. Chairman, has no other date pending. Is that correct?
To the best of my knowledge, currently, yes.
Yeah, to the best of my knowledge as well. So thank you all for coming out tonight, Plan Commission members. As of now, there's no future date, future agenda planned for you, but there are other things afoot and we'll keep you advised.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Motion to adjourn.
I heard Aaron Neal first. He gets the win.
Seconded, Larry Rappich.
Roll call, please. Aaron Neal.
Yes.
Tim Wetzel.
Aye.
Bill Rossetti.
Aye.
Ken Swanson.
Aye.
And Larry Rink.
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned.